Today, we explore how this date completely reshaped our world across five powerful dimensions: culture, education, finance, politics, and technology. This day proves that history never rests. Let's dive into the fascinating interconnected events of this date that continue to influence how we live, think, and innovate today. So, without much further ado, let's go.
Imagine a teenager standing in like a stuffy church hall anteroom, right? Just audaciously flipping a guitar completely upside down.
Oh, yeah, a classic moment.
Right. Now, in your head, swap that out and imagine a massive circus tent suddenly bursting into this like 100-foot wall of flames.
Just a horrific image.
Exactly. And now, picture a multi-billion-dollar algorithmic trade executing at the speed of light, entirely divorced from any human emotion.
Which is pretty much the modern world in a nutshell.
Yeah, it really is. So what do these completely unrelated, wildly different events actually have in common? Well, they all happen on the exact same square of the calendar, July 6th.
It's wild when you put it like that.
I know, right? We almost always look at history as this like timeline, a long horizontal string of events where one thing leads to the next, like a falling row of dominoes.
Yeah, standard cause and effect.
Exactly. But today, for this deep dive into our sources, we are taking a completely different approach. We are taking a core sample.
I love that analogy.
Thanks. Yeah, like the geologist drilling straight down into the ice. We are drilling vertically through a single date. We've got this massive stack of sources here: historical archives, biographies, financial market data. And our mission today is to explore how July 6th has quietly served as a flashpoint for some of the most significant hidden catalysts in human history. So, okay, let's unpack this.
It really is a brilliant way to shift your perspective on how the world actually changes. I mean, when you stop looking for deliberate cause and effect across decades and instead look at the sheer vertical coincidence of a single day,
Right.
you start to realize that history isn't just driven by powerful people making decisions in boardrooms. It is driven by unscripted collisions.
Unscripted collisions. I like that.
Yeah, and by focusing on July 6th, we immediately challenge one of the most popular historical narratives out there.
You mean the 4th of July?
Precisely. I mean, everyone associates American independence with July 4th, 1776.
Sure, the fireworks, the cookouts.
Right. That is when the Continental Congress approved the final wording of the Declaration of Independence. But a political document, locked in a room in Philadelphia, doesn't change the world.
No, it really doesn't.
It doesn't mean anything until the public actually reads it and absorbs the ideas.
Yeah, so if July 4th was the day the founders, wrote the code for a new nation, July 6th was the day they hit publish.
Exactly.
They pushed it live to the public servers. Because on July 6, 1776, the Pennsylvania Evening Post became the very first newspaper to actually print the Declaration.
Which was a massive deal.
Huge. This was the exact moment
Right here.
these highly treasonous ideas were finally disseminated to everyday people.
And the mechanism of that dissemination is what really matters here. I mean, the printing press was the internet of its day.
Oh, absolutely.
Setting that type, pressing the ink, and getting it onto the pages of the Evening Post transformed a closed-door political resolution into a widespread public revolution.
You suddenly had a populace that could read, debate, and rally behind a unified thesis.
Right. But what's truly remarkable is what happened exactly 9 years later to the day.
Oh, yeah. July 6, 1785. The Continental Congress is now meeting in New York. The Revolutionary War is over, but the country's ledger is it's a disaster.
Total chaos.
Yeah. To fund the war, they had printed all this paper money called Continentals, which were entirely worthless. Everyday trade was a nightmare for people. So they make this massive pivot.
They officially replaced the British pound with the newly created U.S. dollar.
Right. So effectively, they realized that ideological freedom meant absolutely nothing if they were still financially chained to the king's wallet.
Mm-hmm.
But how did adopting a new currency actually break that chain? I mean, functionally.
Well, what's fascinating here is the sheer mechanics of the change. You see, the British pound was a non-decimal system.
Okay.
It relied on pounds, shillings, and pence. It was this base 20 and base 12 system, which made everyday accounting incredibly complex.
No, you couldn't just do it in your head easily.
Exactly. You essentially needed to be a trained clerk to do high-level commerce. But on July 6, 1785, America adopted a decimal-based system for the U.S. dollar, a base 10 system.
Which is infinitely simpler. You just move a decimal point.
Right, it democratized commerce. But more importantly, it created a functional firewall between the two nations.
A firewall? How so?
Well, a base 10 economic system is fundamentally incompatible with a base 12 British ledger. By adopting the decimal dollar, America was making independent trade vastly easier for its citizens, while simultaneously making it incredibly difficult to integrate back into the British Empire's economy.
Oh, wow. That is clever.
Yeah, and to ensure trust, this new dollar was initially placed on a bimetallic standard. It was backed by physical grains of silver and gold.
Got it. So on this one square of the calendar, you have the physical publication of the nation's ideology, and then 9 years later, the mathematical mechanism for its survival. But, the nature of a core sample is that the layers aren't always so triumphant. Sometimes the hidden catalysts we find on July 6th aren't built on intellectual breakthroughs, but on, well, catastrophic physical chain reactions.
Yeah, this is where we move to July 6, 1944.
Right.
A miserably hot Thursday in Hartford, Connecticut. Between 6,000 and 8,000 people, mostly women and children, actually, since many of the men were overseas fighting in World War II.
Right, 1944.
Yeah. They are all packed inside the massive, big top tent of the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus.
And the details from the historical archives on this are just incredibly grim. A fire sparks near a partition by the men's toilet. And the reason it spreads with such terrifying speed is the tent itself.
Yes, the canvas.
The canvas was waterproofed using a mixture of paraffin wax, thinned with gasoline. Now, I have to stop and push back on the sheer logic of this.
It sounds insane today.
It really does. How could anyone, even in the 1940s, look at a giant enclosed tent meant to hold thousands of families and think, yeah, let's coat this entire thing in wax and gasoline?
I know, it sounds utterly incomprehensible to a modern mind. But it was actually a standard industry practice at the time.
Really? Gasoline?
Yeah. Circus tents were massive, and if it rained, a soaked canvas would weigh tons more. It could potentially collapse the poles and crush people.
Oh, I see.
So they needed a cheap, effective water repellent. The gasoline evaporated, leaving the wax embedded in the fibers.
Wow.
It highlights this dark, recurring theme in human history. Societies frequently normalize massive, catastrophic risks purely for operational convenience right up until the catastrophe actually happens.
Yeah, and when the fire hit the treated canvas, the flames shot 100 feet into the air almost instantly.
And the chaos that followed was magnified by the environment.
Right, the band leader. Merle Evans saw the flames and immediately instructed his musicians to play John Philip Sousa's Stars and Stripes Forever.
Which wasn't a random audible.
No, it was the circus's secret musical distress signal.
It is a fascinating mechanism for disaster response, really. A crowd hears a lively march and doesn't panic, but every single circus employee knows that song means drop everything, we have a catastrophic emergency.
Right, but even with that early warning system, the tent was basically a death trap.
It was.
As the crowd panicked and ran for the exits, they found several of the main pathways completely blocked. Heavy animal cages were parked right in the aisles.
Because they were in the process of being moved in and out for the big cat acts.
Exactly. Bottlenecks formed instantly. People were trapped while melting, burning canvas just rained down on them.
It's horrifying. Nearly 170 people died that afternoon, and out of that horror emerged mysteries that haunted the country for decades.
Specifically, the tragic case of Little Miss 1565.
Yes.
That was the number assigned to a horribly burned, unidentified little girl at the morgue. For years, investigators and families debated who she was. Some believed she was Sarah Graham. Others were convinced she was Eleanor Emily Cook.
It became a huge national story.
It did. And then you have the psychological twist that came later. In 1950, a former circus employee named Robert Dale Sagi confessed to starting the fire.
Right. His story was very bizarre.
Yeah, he claimed that a ghostly Native American riding a flaming horse appeared to him and commanded him to set the tent ablaze.
Which he later recanted that confession, and medical professionals diagnosed him with severe paranoid schizophrenia.
Right.
But it added this chilling layer of historical ambiguity to an already horrific event. However, the crucial takeaway for you, listening right now, is how this singular tragedy physically reshaped the world you live in today.
Because safety regulations don't just appear out of nowhere.
Exactly. Safety regulations are almost always written in blood.
Yeah.
In the aftermath, investigators found that the circus's fire extinguishers had been inexplicably buried in a storage unit. The fire trucks were parked a quarter-mile away from the tent.
Unbelievable.
4 circus officials eventually went to prison for negligence. And directly because of what happened on July 6, 1944, the state of Connecticut and eventually the entire country enacted incredibly strict new fire safety laws for public performances.
So exits could no longer be blocked by staging equipment. Flame-retardant materials became mandatory.
Precisely. The way you safely exit a concert arena or a theater today is a direct descendant of the ashes of that July 6th fire.
It's a heavy, visceral layer of our calendar core sample for sure. But history rarely pauses. When we move down into the post-World War II era, we transition from a deadly physical chain reaction that destroyed a community to sparks of new life.
Cultural explosions, really.
Yeah, cultural explosions that would redefine the second half of the 20th century. Because exactly 2 years after the Hartford fire, on July 6, 1946, just down the road in New Haven, Connecticut, a baby is born.
George W. Bush, the 43rd president of the United States.
Right. And if we trace his biography through a strictly neutral historical lens based on the sources, you see the genesis of a massive late 20th century political legacy.
You do. He is born into an America that has just won a world war and is rapidly defining its new superpower status.
And his trajectory is perfectly aligned with the major institutions of that era. I mean, he earns a history degree from Yale. He serves as an F-102 fighter pilot in the Texas Air National Guard.
Right.
He gets an MBA from Harvard, goes into the booming energy business, and becomes a partner in the Texas Rangers baseball franchise.
It is the infrastructure of an American political dynasty, and it all begins on July 6, 1946. He leverages that background to enter politics, becoming the first governor in Texas history to be elected to consecutive 4-year terms in 1994 and 1998.
And then, of course, the presidency, where he implements major domestic shifts like the No Child Left Behind Act and ultimately leads the nation's response to the September 11th terrorist attacks.
It is a massive arc of traditional institutional power.
It really is. But here's where it gets really interesting. If we look across the Atlantic to Woolton, Liverpool, on July 6, 1957, we see a completely different type of genesis.
An unscripted collision.
Exactly. One that birthed an unstoppable cultural chain reaction.
We're talking about St. Peter's Church Hall fete, a local village fair. You have this 15-year-old kid named Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
And he is brought by a friend to check out a local skiffle group called the Quarrymen. And the leader of this scrappy group is a 16-year-old named John Lennon.
This is the moment. The big bang of modern pop culture.
It really is.
So John is up on stage singing a doo-wop song called Come Go With Me by the Del Vikings.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually know all the lyrics, so
Yeah.
he's just cleverly improvising words on the spot.
Which is very on brand.
Totally. And Paul is in the crowd watching, just completely struck by John's confidence and attitude.
Right.
Later, they end up in a little anteroom off the stage.
Right.
And Paul, who possesses some serious audacity for a 15-year-old, asks if he can have a go on John's guitar. But Paul is left-handed.
Right, which makes it tricky.
So he takes John's right-handed guitar, correctly retunes it, flips it completely upside down, and flawlessly plays Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock.
And by analyzing the mechanics of that single interaction, you see exactly why the Beatles became a global phenomenon.
How so?
Well, John Lennon was the undisputed alpha of his gang. He easily could have been threatened by this younger kid who was, quite frankly, a far better technical musician than he was.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But instead of letting ego win, his ambition recognized Paul's genius. Tuning a guitar upside down and nailing a complex rock song demonstrated raw technical skill, a deep musical vocabulary, and sheer undeniable confidence.
Wow. It is the ultimate testament to the hidden catalysts of a single day. On July 6th, you have the birth of a wartime baby who would become a wartime president, navigating the highest traditional offices of global power.
Right.
And you have the genesis of the greatest songwriting duo in history, sparking the ultimate rebellious cultural phenomenon over an upside-down guitar in a church hall. Two wildly different expressions of influence, anchored to the exact same calendar square.
Which brings us perfectly to the modern frontier of July 6th.
Let's go there.
We've looked at the paper trails of revolutions, the bimetallic mechanics of early currency, the devastating cost of ignoring physical safety, and the cultural starks of politics and music.
Yeah?
Now, we have to look at how influence and power operate today. We are moving to the absolute bleeding edge of modern financial mechanics in the year 2026.
All right, let's fast forward to our present landscape. We are looking at SpaceX trading under the ticker SPCX.
Right.
According to the financial market data in our sources, they just went public on June 12, 2026. And because of a new fast-track rule by NASDAQ, large IPOs can now qualify for inclusion in the NASDAQ 100 index in just 15 trading days.
Which is incredibly fast.
Very fast.
Yeah.
That official inclusion happens on July 7th. But the absolute frenzy, the crucial mechanic of this whole event, takes place the evening before, on July 6, 2026.
To understand why July 6th is so critical here, you have to understand the mechanics of passive investing.
Okay, break that down for us.
The NASDAQ 100 isn't just a list of top companies. It is a benchmark that is heavily tracked by massive passive funds. The Invesco QQQ Trust alone manages over $800 billion in assets.
$800 billion?
Wow. When a stock is added to that index, the fund managers do not sit in a boardroom and debate whether SpaceX is a good value at its current price. They are contractually mandated by their own algorithms to buy the stock to perfectly match the weight of the index.
So it's basically a giant, inescapable vacuum cleaner turning on right at the closing bell on July 6th.
Exactly.
The vacuum doesn't care if the floor is clean, dirty, overpriced, or underpriced. It just sucks up whatever is mechanically put in front of it.
Yes, the algorithm just executes.
And on that evening, what's in front of it is SpaceX stock. But here is the massive bottleneck. Less than 10% of SpaceX's total shares are actually available to trade on the public market right now.
Which creates a huge problem.
Huge. So you have this monumental wall of mandated automated money trying to squeeze through a tiny window of available shares. That dynamic isn't about human emotion. It is mathematically engineered to cause a massive price spike.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the contrast between this algorithmic buying pressure and the actual underlying financial reality of the company is stark.
Yeah, let's look at that.
If we open up SpaceX's balance sheet, they recently tapped the bond market for $25 billion.
Right.
They have grown their assets to an impressive $92.1 billion, but their liabilities have also swelled massively to $50.8 billion. In 2025 alone, they spent over $20 billion on capital expenditures.
Yeah, let's translate what that cash burn actually means for a second. They ended 2025 with $6.8 billion in operating cash flow. But when you are spending $20 billion on physical infrastructure, launching Starlink satellites, building Starship rockets, you are a company in incredibly heavy investment mode.
Very heavy.
You have massive execution risk. You are carrying losses on the bottom line and negative free cash flow. Traditional value investors might look at that debt and hesitate.
Oh, definitely.
But none of that matters to the index funds on the evening of July 6th. The algorithms do not care about capital expenditures. They just buy.
Think about the journey of the U.S. financial system on this specific date. On July 6, 1785, the Continental Congress established the dollar based on physical grains of silver and gold.
Right. Something you could hold.
Yes, it was a tangible bimetallic system designed to create trust through physical weight and measure. Now, look at July 6, 2026.
Yeah.
We have a heavily leveraged, highly digitized financial ecosystem where billions of dollars move automatically, driven by passive index rules and code, entirely divorced from the physical reality of the company's immediate profitability.
It's crazy.
The evolution of how capital moves over those 241 years is staggering.
It completely reframes how you look at the calendar on your wall.
It really does.
When you strip away the horizontal timeline and just look straight down through the vertical core sample of July 6th, the density of human experience is mind-blowing.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the day a new nation first read its independence in the paper. The day we adopted a decimal currency to sever ties with an empire. The day a horrific circus fire forced us to rethink the physics of public safety.
And the cultural shifts, too.
Right. It's the day a future president was born into a post-war boom, the day the Beatles sparked into existence over an improvised guitar solo, and the day unprecedented, automated financial trades reshaped the modern stock market. We study history as a series of deliberate decisions made by powerful people, but this date proves that history is actually driven by unscripted collisions.
A teenager showing off, a misplaced bottle of gasoline, or an automated line of code.
Exactly.
It is a profound cross-section of humanity. And this raises an important question for you, the listener, right now.
Yeah.
Think about the date on the calendar today. At this exact moment, there are seemingly insignificant meetings happening in local community halls. There are quiet, unglamorous financial mechanisms engaging in the background of the global markets.
Little things we don't even notice.
Right. There are local newspapers and independent blogs publishing ideas that will ultimately define this exact day in the history books a century from now.
We are always walking right over the top of history, entirely unaware of what's freezing into the ice core directly beneath our feet. So what history is being made today that you just can't see yet?
Hi viewers, family and friends. How did you like the content of this video? Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Please write in the comments your name and the place you are watching from. Since our viewing family is spread all over the world, it will be nice to know which city and the country you are watching from, so I can say hello to you. Science and technology. Reading and listening to the historical accomplishments on this date of those who have gone before us, I, as a professional engineer with interest in structural engineering, energy-efficient buildings, ICF construction, and as Google Docs expert with interest in spreadsheet-based solutions, draw inspiration to ask of myself the million-dollar question. What would I accomplish today? Think about the Japanese practice of Kaizen. Let me know in the comments, what would you accomplish today? Your subscribing to the channel inspires me to post more such videos. Thanks for your patronage. See you in the next video. Sincerely, Yogi Anand.